In the quiet neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, lived Arthur Miller, a man in his late 60s whose life had been defined by sacrifice. For over 20 years he had lived alone, raising his only son, Daniel, after the untimely death of his wife, Margaret. She had been the warmth of their small apartment, her laughter filling every corner until illness took her away. After her passing, Arthur became both father and mother to young Daniel, who was only 10 at the time. He worked as a high school math teacher, earning a modest salary that barely covered rent, groceries, and tuition. Many nights, Arthur would skip dinner just to make sure Daniel had money for books and clothes. "Someday, you'll make me proud, son," Arthur would whisper as he helped Daniel with homework late into the night. Daniel grew up admiring his father. He dreamed of becoming a doctor, often saying, "I'll help people the way no one could help Mom." Arthur held onto that dream, pushing himself through endless sacrifices to make it come true. Years passed, and Daniel fulfilled it. He graduated from medical school and became a physician at a prestigious hospital in Manhattan. Soon, he met Emily, a confident, ambitious woman from an influential family in California. She was beautiful and outspoken, the kind of woman who turned heads at every gathering. When Daniel decided to marry her, Arthur gave everything he could. He cashed out most of his retirement savings and even sold a small piece of family land back in Pennsylvania to help pay for the wedding. He spent nearly $60,000 on the ceremony, telling everyone, "A father's joy is seeing his son start a new life." After the wedding, Arthur moved into their spacious apartment in Upper Manhattan. At first, everything seemed perfect. Arthur cooked family dinners, shared old stories from Daniel's childhood, and even prepared Margaret's famous roast chicken recipe, which Emily praised politely. But slowly, things began to change. Emily's true nature began to surface gradually. Coming from wealth and privilege, she saw Arthur's simple habits as outdated and burdensome. "This apartment feels too small with 3 people," she whispered to Daniel when Arthur wasn't around. Daniel, exhausted from long hospital shifts, brushed it off. "Give it time, Emily. Dad means well." But when Daniel worked night shifts or attended medical conferences, Emily's attitude turned cold. She would assign Arthur chores, ignoring his arthritis. "Clean the floors, Arthur. You're just sitting around all day," she snapped, watching him struggle with the mop. If he moved too slowly, she sighed in frustration and muttered, "You should be grateful we let you stay here. Without us, you'd be in a shelter." Arthur endured the insults silently, remembering the little boy who once held his hand during thunderstorms and called him a superhero. The cruelty escalated. Emily threw away Margaret's old photo albums, claiming they cluttered the apartment. She spread whispers among neighbors that Arthur was becoming forgetful, planting seeds of doubt about his mental health. One evening, Daniel came home and found Arthur sitting quietly with a bruised arm. "What happened, Dad?" Daniel asked. Arthur forced a smile. "Nothing serious. Just slipped while carrying groceries." Emily walked in smoothly. "I told him not to overdo it. He exaggerates." Daniel nodded, too tired to question further. Meanwhile, Arthur's finances drained rapidly. He had already given nearly $80,000 over the years, paying off part of their mortgage, helping Daniel buy a new car, even covering Emily's luxury shopping. His own shoes wore thin, his old jacket frayed, yet he continued to give. As December arrived, Arthur looked forward to Christmas. It had always been his favorite holiday, a time when Margaret's laughter used to fill their small home. He decided he would cook her old roast turkey recipe, the one Daniel loved as a child. "This year will feel like old times," Arthur said one evening, gently polishing the dining table he had helped buy. But the joy didn't last. One night, as the Christmas lights flickered in the apartment window, Daniel sat down with a heavy look on his face. "Dad," he began slowly, "you won't be able to stay here for Christmas." Arthur froze. "What do you mean, Daniel avoided his father's eyes. Emily's parents are visiting, and they think it would be uncomfortable if you were here. They expect something more formal. Arthur's heart sank. He glanced around the room, the leather couch he had helped pay for, the curtains bought with his savings, the very walls he had sacrificed for. Every inch carried his effort, his love. Emily entered, dressed in a new designer sweater. It's about appearances, Arthur. My parents expect elegance, not old stories about teaching in public schools. Please understand. Arthur stood slowly, his knees aching. And where am I supposed to go? Neither Daniel nor Emily answered. The silence spoke louder than words. That night, Arthur left the apartment quietly. Snowflakes drifted under the city lights as he walked to his old pickup truck. He drove aimlessly, ending up at a small rented room on the outskirts of town. Alone, staring at Margaret's faded photograph, he whispered, "I gave them everything, and now I have nothing." Arthur moved into a modest old-age shelter on the edge of town. The room was small, with peeling paint and a single window that overlooked a busy street. The bed creaked, the radiator barely worked, but it was all he could afford with the few dollars he had left. Days turned into weeks. Arthur spent hours sitting by the window, clutching the worn photograph of Margaret. He whispered to it often, "Did I fail, Maggie? I thought I gave him everything." The other residents in the shelter carried similar stories: fathers and mothers abandoned, grandparents forgotten by children, too busy chasing wealth and appearances. They shared meals of soup and bread, sometimes joking, sometimes crying. But Arthur's pain was heavier than most. His body grew weaker. Arthritis flared, and sometimes he skipped meals just to save a little money. Meanwhile, Daniel and Emily's life looked perfect on the outside. Emily decorated the apartment for Christmas with golden ornaments and scented candles. "See how peaceful it is without your father," she told Daniel, her voice smooth but sharp. Daniel nodded, though deep down a knot of guilt twisted in his chest. One afternoon, as Daniel cleaned his study, he stumbled upon an old letter from Arthur. The words were simple yet piercing. "My son, everything I have ever earned, every dollar I saved, was for you. If one day there's no place for me in your home, I'll go quietly. But remember, a father's love doesn't fade, it only waits." Daniel's hands trembled as he read. For the first time in years, he began to question the choices he had made, and the silence he had allowed. Daniel couldn't bear the weight of his father's absence any longer. He left his apartment in the Upper West Side and drove through the icy streets of Manhattan, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Snowflakes danced in the headlights as he arrived at the modest old-age shelter. Arthur was sitting by the window, wrapped in a thin blanket, staring at the distant skyline. When he saw Daniel, his frail frame straightened slightly, a mix of hope and caution in his eyes. "Abba," Daniel whispered, voice breaking. "I've been blind." Arthur raised a hand, silent but alert. "You chose her over me," he said quietly, his voice carrying years of hurt and sacrifice. "I know," Daniel admitted, tears streaming down his face. "I was wrong. I didn't see how much you did for me. I let pride and convenience blind me." Emily appeared in the doorway, her designer coat still draped over her arm. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" she demanded, though there was a tremor in her voice. "You don't get it, Emily," Daniel said firmly. "This is my father. If you can't respect him, leave." "He is family." Emily froze, realizing the gravity of her husband's words. For the first time, she saw Arthur not as a burden, but as a man who had given everything to ensure her husband's success. Arthur, though frail, felt a glimmer of relief. Daniel helped him gather a few belongings, walking through the shelter slowly, sharing stories of his realization and apology. Other residents watched quietly, some nodding with knowing smiles. When they returned to Daniel's apartment, Emily's parents arrived for a holiday visit. They witnessed the tension, but were struck by the visible remorse in Daniel's eyes. Slowly, Emily's demeanor softened. Tears welled up as she admitted, "I was wrong. Please forgive me, Abba." I see now. Arthur nodded, the weight in his chest lightening. The confrontation had healed old wounds, and a new chapter of respect and understanding was beginning. Christmas morning arrived with a clear, cold sky over New York City. The sunlight reflected off the snow-covered streets, and the scent of pine from the decorated apartment filled the air. Arthur stood in the kitchen, tying an apron over his sweater, preparing his famous holiday roast with herbs, a recipe passed down from his late wife, Margaret. Daniel and Emily worked side by side, chopping vegetables and setting the table. The tension from the past months had melted, replaced by cautious but genuine smiles. Emily's parents lingered in the living room, observing quietly, their expressions softening as they saw Arthur's dignity and warmth. The apartment buzzed with laughter as the roast came out of the oven, golden and fragrant. Daniel poured glasses of apple cider, and they all gathered around the table. Arthur carved the roast carefully, sharing stories of Daniel's childhood, tales of his mother, and memories of quiet sacrifices made over the years. Emily helped plate the dishes, now humbled and understanding the depth of Arthur's love. Her parents apologized for their earlier judgmental behavior, acknowledging the generosity and patience Arthur had shown. Daniel took his father's hand, whispering, "You're my everything, Abba. Never again will I take you for granted." Arthur's eyes glistened with tears, the past hurt slowly dissolving into the warmth of family reunion. The day passed with joy, shared stories, and laughter that echoed into the night. Arthur felt the love he had given return tenfold, and the home glowed not just with holiday lights, but with renewed bonds, understanding, and forgiveness. As the evening settled, Arthur stood by the window, gazing at the Manhattan skyline. Holding a framed photo of Margaret, he whispered, "Our son has come home, and our family is whole again." The story ended with a sense of closure, love restored, and a reminder that sacrifice, patience, and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds.